A very good morning to all my dear students. So once again, I welcome you on behalf of Institute of Chartered Accountants of India on this virtual world. As we have already started with the second unit of Sale of Goods Act, and I can see like good sincere students, you have started studying this unit as well. From where did I get to know? From the queries that I have received. Yes, good Neha Kumari from New Delhi. Even I'm excited to teach you about the new concepts. And Anand from Gulbarga, we will definitely be discussing about all these presentation tips that you have talked about. Many of you are still writing that, ma'am, some of our still, we are having that fear when we open and revise the Contract Act. And many of you, Ria Goel is also saying, ma'am, still some queries and I can, my mind can read the worries on your mind, which you show me by saying, ma'am, still we are scared of Contract Act. So since we have started proceeding further to Unit 2. Let me just honestly tell you one thing very important, students. It is absolutely normal to forget when you're studying the law for the very first time. So I told you the principle of hard work and consistency. So it's absolutely normal if you're not able to retain the information at the memory box as of now. If you are finding it tough, you have to revise it. Children, many a times when we are listening, we are understanding. I told you earlier also, memory game. It's all about the memory game. Law is all about, retaining it in your memory box. At times we tend to get confused, like somebody is asking, ma'am, can you explain about seller and agreement to sell, insolvency, damages, everything you have asked. This is part of the chapter which we yet have to do. That's why I said I congratulate all of you. You have started opening the study material you are studying. That's why you have started asking queries even beforehand that we have not even yet, covered that part. So today we will be talking to a great extent about differences between sale and agreement to sell. So don't worry if you have not understood it. We will be talking about it. But one thing I want to tell you before starting the session, children, it is absolutely normal if you're getting confused at times, you're not applying, it is all about application of mind. You have to stay calm, read the question once again carefully, read the analysis. Trust me, study material is the Bible. It has each and every answer for your queries. It's only that we need a calm mind to read it and to understand it, what the study is telling us. Okay, so please don't stop worrying first of all, okay, that I am still left with Contract Act queries or something like that is happening with me. I'm not able to recall what I have learned. So all these, it's absolutely to have such kind of, vibrations or worries, but just stay calm and keep studying, keep revising. Many a times when you play the video lecture and you're listening once again, many times your queries get answered then and there only. So for example, somebody was asking me, ma'am, what is contingent contract and contingent goods? So if that child has paid attention during the contingent contract last unit, last chapter that we were doing, and he has also heard unit 1 sale of goods very nicely, he can answer to both the queries. So it's just we have to pay attention. You have to, whatever extra examples, extra notes the teachers are telling you. A very good morning to all the written morning comments. So Soumya from property, document of title, all these terminologies will be used again. Bhumika, definitely we'll tell you how to prepare. Once again, a very good morning. Let us understand, I can do and I will do. I have to do it. All right. So what is important over here to understand that we will crack our CA foundation exam. If you are not able to do it, if you were not able to do it in the past, it's absolutely normal. God has given you one more, chance to revise your law provisions very nicely, to revise your accounting concepts once again very nicely. So you don't have to give up. If you're asking me, ma'am, then what we have to do, then you please have to be consistent and you have to keep revising and doing it. But we never have to take a step back. Otherwise, this is how we have to learn to complete our fight. Devash, yes, you have to stick to the legal language, child. Devash from Mumbai is asking, Yes, you have to stick to the language, but you can form the answers in your own language also. Good, Nitish from Kolkata. All right. Yes, Khushi Gupta, you're absolutely right. We have very less time. That's the reason why I keep telling all of you that if I just keep on flipping through your queries and we keep on having one-to-one sessions, then my main target is, to complete the syllabus also. So I really don't want you all to leave behind on that thing. Seller can sell the goods, buyer can buy. Venkataram from Peta is asking, yes, that is a contract of sale. How the sale and agreement to sale turns into a difference, I will be talking about that in today's lecture. Ria Goel, you have also asked about the same question. So all your questions regarding insolvency, buyer, seller, whatever you're asking, all of them will get Bhavna Gulati, Jay Pathak, all of you have asked similar kind of queries. So all your queries will get answered in today's lecture. All right. So let's begin with the session today. So children, before we proceed for today's session, let me just have a quick revision of what we did in the last lecture, because we have already started with the Sale of Goods Act last time. Let me just check the connectivity is fine. So we have already started with the Sale of Goods Act, and now we are going to proceed on the first chapter of Unit 2. All right. So you all have understood that sale of goods is applicable now to whole of India, and it came into force in 1930. So let's have a quick 5 minutes recap. So all your queries that you have asked about existing goods, future goods, it will also get answered along with that. So I told you it applies only to the movable properties. Very, very important line to remember, because if anyone is asking, A is agreeing to sell his property, that is an immovable property, that is a building which is standing in, even the intangible goods are also considered as Sir, I lost the connection, I believe. Am I connected? It's clear? Voice is clear? Yes, all right, all right. Let's proceed. So we were having a quick revision before beginning to the today's session. So I was telling you that we have already discussed how the contract of sale is made. What are the movable goods? I told you, children, it is about not only just tangible, intangible assets like your copyrights, patents, trademarks, goodwill. Few of you had a query regarding this also last time. So whatever, say for example, somebody is the author of a book. So he has those copyrights for that particular book. So whatever expenditure he has done to obtain those copyrights, he can even sell that. So whatever expenses he did, he can do a valuation on the basis of that, and he can sell his copyrights or a goodwill that we are selling. So all these things, it's written under Sale of Goods Act, will be considered as a part of goods. Even the stocks, shares, something which is forming part of land which can be separated. So only two exceptions I told you to remember. Actionable claims and money is not a part of good. What are the actionable claims? Once again, let's have a revision. That is any debt. A debt is outstanding. That means it is not considered as a good. A debt, unsecured debt or a secured debt, whatever it is, it will never be considered. Something which is, enforceable, against which a suit has been filed. So you just asked me the meaning of pledge. So here once again your answer comes when somebody has taken loan from the bank and you have pledged your Daniel Wellington watch. So you have a very precious watch. You have given it to the banker that please give me 10,000 rupees loan and I will return it to you. So what is this transaction called where you have given a movable good to the banker for obtaining loan? Here, the movable good child that you have given to the banker and you have taken the money from the banker in return of that, this transaction is known as transaction of pledge. Tomorrow, if you have given a date of 15th March 2021, I will be returning the money and you give me my watch back. But on 15th March 2020, if you fail to give the money back to the banker, he will simply go and sell your watch in the market. That is the security that you have already provided for obtaining a loan. So obviously, banker will not suffer a loss. He will sell your watch and obtain your money. But children, I told you, now this is an actionable claim where he is filing a case against you. So we just have to remember all these actionable claims where a suit is enforceable at the court of law. All these kind of debts will not be considered as part of goods. But when you ask me, ma'am, does pledge and mortgage, are these part of sale of goods? So the answer to that is absolutely no. Why? Because the first line of my presentation says the act is not applicable to the immovable properties. So where I'm mortgaging my building and taking a loan from you, that is the case of mortgage. So that is an immovable property. So cross immovable properties anyways not part of Sale of Goods Act. So is mortgage a part of Sale of Goods Act? No. Is pledge a part of Sale of Goods Act? No. We just try to understand the meaning of pledge and mortgage with respect to the property in the goods. You remember? In the last lecture, when we discussed about the property, I told you here you need a reference of pledge. So here when the pledgee has the right to, so here the pledgee in the example that I just told you, the banker is the pledgee. He has the right to retain the goods pledged till the payment of the stipulated dues. So you have agreed to give me 10,000 back on 15th March. So as a banker and the pledgee of the goods that you have given me, I have the right to retain those goods. Now, what is this right of retaining the goods, right of resale is part of your third chapter. So when we go to third chapter, see children, all this law is interrelated. Today, I will be using again those terms of breach of contract, damages. You will get to revise all your last 2-3 chapters of Indian Contract Act. So that's why you have to be fully attentive in all the lectures because they have a connection between all the lectures. They have a connection with each other. All right. That's why I keep telling you at times your queries are not answered behind. Today, when you listen to the lecture carefully, many things which were coming in your mind just get, acknowledged and get answered. So all you require is your pen, papers, and full concentration of mind when I'm teaching you. All right, children. So had you been sitting in front of me, I would have asked you, so what is the meaning of property? You would have raised your hand and quickly answered, ma'am. Now we remember property means the ownership. So I told you in the last lecture very clearly, whenever we are talking under the Sale of Goods Act, what are you giving to the another person? You're giving the property in the goods, and the meaning of that property is known as general property of the goods. If you have not written it down, write it down once again. Whenever you are passing a property, A is selling a pencil to B. So now is the future date. I told you we will be manufacturing yellow pencils and now future date has come. It was an agreement to sell. Now you give me the price, I give you the pencil. So the ownership of the pencil is now yours. It is your pencil. I don't own it. So once what you have to see under Sale of Goods Act is who is the owner? Write it down. Under Sale of Goods Act 1930, what you have to remember is who is the owner of goods. Let's do an interesting example. This pencil, I sell you right away. Who becomes the owner? You become the owner. What has been passed? The general property in the goods is passed from Harleen ma'am to Mohit. So Mohit is one of the students who is listening to us. He has purchased it from me. Now he becomes the owner and I was the seller. Now I've given it to you. You become the owner. Okay, let's take example with another name. So I make a contract with Amarnath to sell my pencil on 10th of March. So let's assume it's today 10th of March, future date has come and now I sell my pencil to you. So Amarnath becomes the owner on 10th March. Till 10th March, who is the owner of the pencil? Ma'am is the owner of the pencil. Can I use it? Can I write it? Yes, I'm the owner. I can do it. I can even throw it in the dustbin. I can do whatever I want. But on 10th March, when Amarnath pays me and become the owner, do I have any right on this? No. I don't have right now. The buyer, the Amarnath who has purchased it from us, becomes the owner of the pencil. All right. So again, you have so many questions regarding assignment, queries. So let's pay attention, children, over here right now, and then we'll go back to the query session. So I want all your eyes and ears, everything over here right now. Okay, now let's understand further. So you have understood when I'm giving under sale also, the general property in the goods is passing. Under agreement to sell also, the general property of the goods, that is the ownership, is passing from one person to another. So what is the special property? The case of watch, which I explained you, when you keep it with the banker, in that case, under special circumstances, the bank is going to sell your watch. If you come on 15th March, you give the money back, you get your watch back. That is the special property which was being enjoyed by the pledgee. Similarly, in the case of bailment, now you will ask me, ma'am, bailment is also part of your syllabus. Only the differences between sale versus bailment is part of your syllabus. Bailment and pledge, which are actually part of Indian Contract Act, is not entirely the part of your CA foundation syllabus. But we have to touch base to them. That means we have to understand who is a bailer, who is a bailee, in order to make the concept of sale very much clear. So here I'm using another word, listen carefully, the word of bailee. So for example, if you have learned, remember in Indian Contract Act, I told you when you had to go for your exam and you're getting late and your father needs a car. His car is not working. So he quickly goes to his neighbor's house and he borrows a car. So the neighbor become bailer and your dad becomes bailee. Remember, we did this example. So I told you now your dad has borrowed someone's car. Whether it's a gratuitous bailment or a non-gratuitous bailment, whether he's paying something in return or it is free of cost. When you're borrowing something, then after the purpose has been accomplished, you need to return it back. So all these cases where you're a pledgee, where you're bailee, you're enjoying the special property in the goods. You're not having the ownership in the goods. All right. So ownership only and only when it is a case of sale or it is a case of agreement to sale, we talk about the general property of the owner, that is the general ownership of the goods. Children, Sale of Goods Act is entirely based on two words, ownership and possession. Once you make this picture of ownership clear in your mind, you can answer each and everything. What happens when one becomes insolvent? What happens when one breaches the contract? All the answers depend upon one thing, that is, who is the owner? This pencil is mine. Any loss happens, I am the seller, I will bear. I have sold it to the buyer. Buyer is the owner. Any loss happen, he will bear. I have a pencil. I am breaching the contract. I have not sold it to you. It is still with me. Who bears the consequences? So everywhere you have to see who is the owner, whether the ownership has been transferred or it is yet to be transferred. In sale, it transfers immediately. Agreement to sell, it transfers at future date. So let us begin the topic, that is sale and agreement to sale once again. It says where the property in the goods is immediately transferred from seller to buyer. So if I have immediately transferred it to you, then it is the case of sale. If I have agreed that sale will happen at a future date, on 10th of March, I will be selling you the goods. So you will come to my place on 10th of March. I will give you the goods. You give me the money. That's it. Or subject to some condition. Only when you come after 2 days and pay me the advance, then I agree to sell you my goods. What transaction is that? Yes, you're right. That is an agreement to sell. So sale, immediately the sale is happening. Remember a chocolate Cadbury example, specific goods. Goods are already lying on the shelf. You said that I want this Oreo peanut butter. The seller gives it to you. You purchase it. Specific goods sale immediately happened. But what about the future goods? The quintals of potatoes which were yet to be grown. Cow was yet to yield the milk. So all these things are on the basis of future happening. Sir, when I will manufacture the things, I will give it to you. So this is future goods. All right. So remember one thing, future goods. Don't worry. I will again talk about contingent goods also. I know that you are worried that this has been skipped, but we did this last time also. Again, its reference will come today, when today we will be talking about the subject matter of the contract of sale of goods. All right. So property in the goods we have understood. understood in sale, it immediately gets transferred. Under agreement to sell, the property will get transferred at a future date. So there will be a certain date or certain condition that needs to be fulfilled, and that time the property and the goods will get transferred. Now, very important to understand the elements. So before we jump to the differences between sale versus agreement to sell, what we have to do is, what are the essential elements existing in a contract of sale? Okay, so what are the essential elements? Let us one by one talk about that. So number one, I told you there must be at least two parties. Now, before this, examiner can ask you straight away, please write down the essential elements for the contract of sale. So what will you do? You'll quickly get up and write these 6 essential elements. That's it. A straightforward question that can come in your exam. So what is the answer to that? Number one, there is a contract of sale. What is the meaning of contract? We refer to Indian Contract Act. Ma'am, we already know now, something which is legally enforceable in the court of law. An agreement which has become enforceable is a contract. So who are the two parties who made this contract? So it's very important to have two parties, that is buyer and seller. Buyer and seller. Who are buyer and seller? Ma'am, in the last presentation, you have already told us the definition of buyer and seller. The seller was a person who is selling or agreeing to sell. Buyer is the person who has buy or agreed to buy the goods from you. A agrees to sell 100 bales of cotton to B in the month of December. Does he become seller and buyer right now? Yes, they become seller and buyer. Has the ownership been transferred? No, it has not been transferred. But yes, they have become buyer and seller. Why? Because this is transaction of agreement to sell. A sold 100 bags of sugar to B immediately. Case of sale. A agrees to sell 100 bags of sugar to B on future date. Transaction of agreement to sell. In both the cases, the parties become buyer and seller. A is the seller over here and B becomes the buyer. Why it is important to understand? Because whenever one party breaches the contract, when we move to these differences, then we will understand why, what is the role of the buyer over here and what is the role of the seller. Who can sue him and for what reasons? That is what we have to understand. So children, it is very important to understand the two parties are the buyer and seller. Can you sell your goods to yourself? I have a very smart, dress lying in my wardrobe. Can I just purchase it from myself? It is mine only. Why do I need to purchase it? I can just take it out and wear it because I'm the owner. Can I purchase my own pen from myself? It's my pen. I have the liberty to use it, to write it. I can dispose it. I can do it whatever I want. Owner cannot sell and purchase with the things on their own. But let's take another interesting example. If the partnership firm is getting dissolved and all the partners distribute their assets, you all have done partnership under the accounts, whether in 11th or 12th, or you're doing it as a part of your CA foundation. So you understand what is a partnership when they make the accounts, what is the meaning of dissolution, they dissolve it and they distribute the assets. Now, any sale has happened over here? The answer is no. You were the owners of the partners and you have just divided the share among yourself. So no sale is happening in case of dissolution of partnership. Another example of joint ownership. A and B jointly owned a motorcycle. So both of them were having 50-50% share. Now B says that I am no longer in need of this motorcycle. I have purchased another car, or maybe I'm going abroad. Please, I want to sell this my share of share that I have in the property to you. So Mr. A said, okay, now I will purchase this 50% share also from you, and he pays the price for that. That will be considered as a transaction of sale because two parties, although they were joint owners, but the percentage of share is different. So you have to see the context of the situation, whether a sale is happening, whether two parties are involved or not. All right. So it's very important that two parties must be there in order to make it a transaction of sale. Second, we have already understood it should be a movable good. Goods must be there which can be taken from one place to another. Stocks, shares, grass, trees, pen, bottle, chair, table, all these things, all the nouns that you have studied during childhood, that is a kind of movable goods which can be taken from one place to another. Any furniture you're making for your house, any bed you're making. But is land and building good? No, immovable properties will not be considered under Sale of Goods Act. Under Sale of Goods Act, we only have movable goods. What are those goods? You have already done existing goods, future goods. Existing are further divided into specific and ascertained. So now you remember, if the goods are still in a box, it is known as unascertained goods. When you take it out from them and you specify, that is a certain goods. When you specifically mention about a particular thing that you want in a shop, that is Samsung Galaxy S7 Edge phone, you have specifically mentioned the name, that is known as a specific good. So again, examiner can give you questions. You have asked, many of you are still asking the queries of ascertained and unascertained goods. Please remember this picture in your mind. Keep this picture, that if the chocolate which has been specified, it is specific good. If the goods are still in a box, they are yet to be identified, it is unascertained goods. Once you take it out them from the box and you weigh and measure them and keep it aside for the buyer to come and take the delivery, it is known as a certain goods. Yet to be manufactured, future goods, and something which is sailing in a ship. You are not sure whether they're going to be reaching or not. Some contingency, some uncertainty is attached. You are dependent upon the third party. That are the contingent goods. So where A agrees to sell 100 apples to B, provided C gives him those. So here the contingency is on the happening and non-happening of the event, whether C delivers the 100 apples or not. Where A agrees to sell B 100 bales of cotton which are sailing in a ship which is coming from London. If ship reaches the port safely, then only the sale will happen. So here some contingency is attached, is known as contingent goods. So this is also we have done. Price in money, very, very, very important point. I sell you this box of colors which is lying in front of me. So I sell you this box of colors free of cost. Is it a sale? The answer is no. I sell you this box of colors. If you can see plastic crayons, it's written over here. I sell you this small box of colors which is priced as ₹50. But I say, child, please take this color box and give me a chocolate in return. Is it a contract of sale? The answer is no. I sell you this box and you give me, instead of 50, you gave me 20 rupees. Is it a contract of sale? Yes. Money has to be involved. Another example. I sell you this box, you gave me 20 rupees in cash and for 30 rupees you gave me sweets. Then also it is a contract of sale. Children, in Contract of Sale of Goods Act, you have to understand it as short stories and examples. Many examples you should read and understand to make your concept clear. It is very simple. What you have to understand is whether ownership has been passed, whether goods are involved. Because what is the definition of Contract of Sale of Goods Act? Definition in itself says it is a contract where buyer and seller agrees to transfers or agrees to transfer. What are they transferring? The property in the movable goods. So we have understood what is property, what is good at a price. So ma'am just told you price. When you pay me 20 rupees or 30 rupees or 40 rupees, something you are paying me in cash is considered as a price under Sale of Goods Act. If you just give me a chocolate for this sale of goods, then it is not a sale of goods because no barter system is accepted under the preview of Sale of Goods Act. So you can write down under Sale of Goods Act, the consideration that is given in return must be. Must means pakka se. Maybe hota hai shayad. Must, M-U-S-T, must be in monetary terms. So whether you pay me 20 rupees in cash and 30 rupees you're giving me sweets, then also it's fine. Cash has to be there. So there can be no exchange of goods in exchange of goods, then it is not a transaction of sale of goods. See, I give you an example. A agrees to sell B sugar in exchange of packets of wheat. Is it a contract of sale? The answer is no. If he agrees to sell the sugar in exchange of some cash and wheat, then the answer is yes. So you have understood the price means monetary consideration should be there. Fourth point, I've already explained you. Transfer of property means transferring the general property in the goods. Ownership has to be transferred. I am the owner of this color box. When I give it to you, you become the owner. So transfer of property is taking place. All the essential elements of the valid contract must be present. So ma'am, can you please revise us? What were the essential elements? Offer, acceptance, consideration. So consideration, I told you, must be in money terms. Legal object and legal consideration. I am selling you these pencils and this color box and you're giving me drugs in return. Is it a valid contract? Is it a valid sale of goods? No, because the consideration that you paid is illegal. Possibility of performance. Again, sale of goods. I'll sell you this color box only if you get me the stars from the sky. Impossibility of performance. So all those essential elements that you have already studied as a part of Indian Contract Act must be present. Parties should be competent to enter into contract. Is minor only selling, minor child removed his watch and sold it to minor only, no transaction. Minor selling to major, competency of parties has to be seen. Parties are legally eligible to enter into a contract. Free consent was there. At a gunshot, ma'am is selling you this color box. It is not a valid contract of sale. Okay, so all the essential elements you know better than me now. What is the meaning of maybe absolute or conditional? A sells sugar to B for rupees 500. Absolute. Fine. Valid contract of sale. A agrees to sell 500 bags of sugar to B only if B comes and pays in advance. Only if B does something for Mr. A. Some condition, some subjective condition if you are attaching, that is known as conditional contract of sale. So A agrees to sell 100 bags of sugar only if B agrees to pay in advance. So I have attached some condition. So law says then also it is a valid contract of sale. So conditional contract of sale is also valid. Or B is saying I will buy sugar from you only if you allow me to say make the payment after 10-15 days. So again, some condition is somebody is asking for the advance, somebody is asking for installment, somebody is attaching the condition of late payment. So all these are conditional contract of sale. Law says that is also absolutely valid. Okay, so please remember this 6 principles, essential elements, which are very important to make a contract of sale. Now let us move to your favorite topic, that is the differences between sale and agreement to sell. I seriously wish you all have been sitting in front of me. I would have asked you only. By now, I am 100% sure you know all these points of differences. But still, I will make it once again clearer for all of you so that it gets feeded in your brain over here. So please pay full attention. Sit straight, all of you, okay? Differences. So the first difference is transfer of property. In sale, I told you, I sold you the pencil. You became the owner immediately. So transfer of property happens immediately. Who becomes the owner? The buyer becomes the owner immediately. So you can write down small examples with this. So when you're writing immediately, you can write A sells sugar to B. B becomes the owner immediately. Agreement to sell, future date or fulfillment of condition. Children, I just explained you over here the meaning of conditional. So if he has agreed to pay after 10 days, can I give him the ownership right now? I'm sorry, you come back after 10 days, you give me the payment, then only you become the owner. So this is the case of agreement to sell. Agreement to sell is always about the future transaction, whether the payment is to be made in future or the goods are to be given in future. Say, for example, A contracted with B that A will make a beautiful pair of shoes for B and then he will sell it to him. So right now he is not having the shoes. He has agreed to make the shoes for B and he can come on a future date and take it from Mr. A. So what is this kind of transaction? This is the transaction of agreement to sell. So when will the transfer of property happens? This is the heading. All these in reds are the headings about which we are talking. So when will the transfer of property happens? Transfer of property will happen at a future date, or when the shoes are ready, Mr. B will come, he will try them, wear them, pay the price, then the sale will take place, means then the ownership will happen. So who is the owner today in case of agreement to sell? Please write it down under the first point. Seller is the owner. Till the date, the future date or fulfillment of the condition, Mr. A, who is making the shoes, he remains the owner. Only when the sale happens, then only the buyer becomes the owner. So under first case, transfer of property immediately, you can write down over here. Let's write down over here immediately. So here, who is the owner? Who becomes the owner? The buyer becomes the owner. So on a future date, so who is the owner over here? The seller is the owner in this case. Okay, so we have to remember all these points, very, very important. So here buyer is the owner, here the seller becomes the owner. Nature of contract, this is executed contract. See, I told you, revision of nature of contracts. Remember, we did all the types of contracts: void, voidable, bilateral, unilateral, executed, executory. So what was the meaning of executed? Both the parties have done the work. I gave you pencil, you gave me 10 rupees, contract is executed. I gave you the pencil, you are yet to make me the money. Executory, I still remain the owner. You are not the owner because you have not paid the price. You paid the price, but goods are not ready. They have to be manufactured. Again, it is an executory contract. Something yet needs to be done. The ownership is still lying pending with whom? The seller. Here the seller remains the owner. Here the buyer becomes the owner. Very important point. Okay. So this is executed contract. This is executed. Let us move to the fourth point first. Liability of parties on subsequent loss or destruction of the subject matter. Now, what is the subject matter? First of all, let's understand goods. We are talking about the goods, right? I told you, if, for example, this mobile phone is the good that I'm taking over here. So Harleen ma'am agrees to sell this mobile to Ria Goel. So if Ria Goel purchases it immediately, she becomes the owner. But I have agreed to sell it to her on future date, then till that future date, Harleen ma'am is the owner. So what is the meaning of liability of parties? When buyer becomes the owner, in our first case, buyer becomes the owner. So if the goods get destroyed, who will be liable for those goods? Obviously, buyer, because he has purchased the goods. Now, when I've sold this mobile phone to someone and he takes it from my shop, goes out and breaks the phone, am I liable to pay her? Why should I have already sold her? She has paid me the money and she went out and she dropped the phone. Now she has to bear the subsequent losses. But where I am the seller and Anita came to my shop, she said, I want to purchase this from you. And we made an agreement to sell that, okay, something still needs to be done and I will complete all those configuration and you can come after 10 days and purchase it from me. So neither the goods have been transferred nor the price has been paid. So this is completely a transaction of agreement to sell. So who is the owner? I am the owner. If I only drop the phone down and it just gets broken, then who is liable for that loss? I am liable for the loss because I am the owner. I am seller. So what you have to see in this question is who is the owner? So liability of parties on subsequent, remember you can write down the line, risk of loss follows ownership. This is written in your study also. Risk of loss follows ownership. So risk is with the person whosoever is the owner. If buyer is the owner, then he will bear the loss. If seller is the owner, then he has to bear the loss. Simple, clear. So point number 1, 2 and 4 is completely clear. Similarly, fifth is also same. So who bears the liability of the buyer? That means now if she has purchased it from me and went out of the shop and it got broken, she has to fulfill the repair damages. If I have got it broken, then it is my liability. So burden of risk, point number 5th. Who has the risk with her? Buyer has the risk with her because if the buyer falls and destroys the good, then he has to bear the loss. And in agreement to sell, point number 5, burden of risk is with the seller because goods are lying with me. If the goods get spoiled and damaged in my godown only, fire occurs, any such thing happen, I have to bear the liability because goods were mine only. I have not yet sold to them. But if the sale has happened, ownership has been transferred, then under point 1, 2, 4 and 5, buyer will be liable. What is the meaning of just in rem and just in personam? Point number 6. It says under the sale, contract of sale creates the point that is just in rem. Now listen carefully. 25 queries related to this question has already come. So now we are doing it. Pay attention. Just in rem means once you become the owner, you get all the rights for that product against the whole world. So just in rem means rights against the whole world. Write it down. Just in rem means rights available against the whole world. So when I purchase this box, color box from the seller, I am the buyer. Now I become the owner. Whether I throw it, I use the crayons, I just take the box, I just flip it like this, I do a drawing, I can do whatever I want to do. Nobody can interfere the rights with my ownership. Seller cannot come and say that, ma'am, you took this box from us. Why have you kept it open like this? Why have you closed it like this? Why have you thrown the colors? It is my right. I have just in rem right against the whole world because I am the buyer. But in agreement to sell, what do we have? We only get just in personam, means right against the two parties. I have agreed to sell this box of colors to Mr. B. So now we both have rights against each other. It has to be delivered to that person. If I do not deliver that person can come and ask me for the delivery. All right. So just in personam, you have to understand that in just in personam, we two parties have entered into an agreement and they have the rights against each other. A is to transfer the ownership to B at future date. So if A fails to transfer, B can come and take an action. But just in rem means he has got all the rights. Now nobody going to interfere with his rights. But just in personam means somebody still has the right, two parties have the right against particular property. See, for example, you went to a dealer and you got your car booked. So you wanted a particular I-10 and you went to the car and you have already booked your I-10. But seller refuses to give it to you on the due date. Now you have the rights only against that particular person. Can you go and have a fight with the Jaguar dealer or with some, Maruti dealer that, this person has not given me this car. Now I want to fight with you. No, that is just in rem. When you get the goods, you have full right on these goods. You can fight with the whole world for these goods. But here the goods are still not yours. You only have the right against that particular I-10 dealer. You can go and fight with him only, not with whole of the world. Understood? So remember this example. Just in rem, you have the right against the whole world. Just in personam means person. So in person means only two parties have entered into the agreement. So only they can have the rights against each other. You cannot have the just in rem in case of agreement to sell because property is still not yours. You are still not the owner. Therefore, you cannot enforce your rights for that property against whole world. What is the seventh meaning? Yes, I know third one is left, but be patient. We'll come to the third one at the end. So seller cannot resell the goods. What does it mean? Trying to confuse you. It says right of resale. So the question over here is who can resell? You are the seller. I am the buyer. I purchased it from you. Who became the owner? I became the owner. I can sell it, dispose it, whatever I want to do, I can do with the goods. You are the seller. I am the buyer. I have agreed, okay, ma'am, I will come after 10 days and I will purchase it from you. Then you are the owner. You still have the right to resell the goods. Who Who is the owner? Again, I told you, it's all the game is about the ownership and sale of goods. So I read it once again. Right of resale. The seller cannot resell the goods. Now seller is not the owner. Example. A agrees to sell 100 tons of sugar to B immediately. So this is a case of sale. So who becomes the owner? B becomes the owner. Once the contract of sale has happened, can A say, no, give my sugar back, I want to resell? No, he cannot do that. But where A has agreed to sell the goods to B on future date, here the ownership is still lying with the seller. Here A is still the seller. If tomorrow he gets another profitable customer, Mr. C comes to his shop and he's giving him higher profit, seller can still resell the goods because under agreement to sell, seller is the owner. So what you have to remember in case of resale also, who is the owner of the goods? So point number 1 is clear. Immediately the ownership is passing. Here it is passing at a future date. So we have written in bold. Why we have written? To remember, under sale, buyer is the owner. Under agreement to sell, seller is the owner. Contract executed, has to do something. Liability of the buyer under sale, under agreement to sell. Ma'am, you have told us seller is the owner. So seller will bear the liability. Who is having the burden of risk? Buyer is having. Here seller is having. 6th point, buyer gets all the rights against the whole world. Here buyer only gets the right against that particular person. He can only go and fight with that particular person, but not against the whole world. Seller cannot resell the goods because he is not the owner. Here seller can resell the goods because he still remains the owner of the goods. Now, the very important point and very interesting point, remedies for the breach of contract. First of all, you all remember what is the meaning of breach of contract? To break the contract. जो भी contract को तोड़ता है, धोखा देगा. So it can either be the buyer who is breaching the contract or it can be the seller who is breaching the contract. So let us understand first from the viewpoint of the seller breaching the contract. So what they have written in your study material, they say seller can sue the buyer for the price because of the property passing. Here he has talked about the breach of contract by the buyer. Here he is saying seller can sue him for the price means the goods have been sold. Buyer has now become the owner. Now if he don't pay me the price, I will sue him for the price. And similarly, in agreement to sell, he says you do not become the owner, so I will only sue you for the damages and not for the price because goods are still lying with me. But let us understand with the example about the breach of contract on the part of both the parties. So first heading that you need to write is breach of contract by the seller. What happens if the seller breaches the contract? Now children, here you have to understand one very important thing, whether the ownership has been passed or it has not been passed. Sometimes it happens that I sell you the goods immediately. I sell you the goods immediately and goods are still in my possession. So you went to a grocery shop to purchase the goods and you paid uncle the price for the biscuits and chocolates that you have purchased. But you said, since I'm carrying too many bags, can I leave my chocolates that I have purchased from your shop on your, desk over there? So seller says, okay, fine, you can keep it and you can go and proceed and further do your shopping. So now whose goods are these? These are your goods. You have already made the payment. Only they are lying in the shopkeeper's shop. You yourself said that can I keep these goods? You have purchased it now. He has taken the price from you. Now the goods are yours. So this is how you have to understand. There are two things. Possession of the goods. Here the goods are still in his possession. Possession means custody. First of all, write down what is the meaning of possession of the goods. Possession means custody of the goods. Somebody is holding the goods. But what we have to see is whether the ownership of the goods has been passed or not. Say the shopkeeper says, the child, the biscuits that you have come to ask for are not available. Please come after 2 days. Has he sold the biscuits? Have you become the owner? No. So what is the case? This is an agreement to sell. A layman's example I'm taking, okay, day-to-day routine. So an agreement to sell has been made. So therefore, the goods are lying in my possession also. I am the owner also. I have not made the buyer the owner. So agreement to sell may be a case where the ownership and possession both are yet to be transferred. However, under sale, we understood ownership and possession are both transferred immediately, but at times it happens that the ownership is transferred immediately, but the goods are yet to be delivered. Now let us understand from an example, because I'm using this example to explain you the point of seller's breach of contract. So I hope you have written the heading, the breach of contract by the seller. So first of all, let's do an example under the category of sale. So A goes to the B's shop. So B is having a big showroom of washing machine. So he's having Whirlpool washing machines and very nice smart washing machines he has kept. So this Mr. A, who is a buyer over here, he went to buy a washing machine from Mr. B. Now, whenever your child purchases a washing machine, you must have noticed if your parents go for a refrigerator, washing machine, bed, these kind of things, you make the payment and then, a transporter or a cart comes and then they load the goods on that and then the goods need to be delivered. You cannot pick up a washing machine and keep it in your own car only and then you take it home. You always need something for transporting the goods. So here law says sale has happened immediately the moment the shopkeeper Mr. B made an invoice in the name of Mr. A. So I have reversed the buyer and seller over here. So B is the shopkeeper of washing machine showroom. Mr. A came to his shop and he said, I want to purchase a washing machine. So he has selected a particular washing machine. Goods have become existing goods. Seller was the owner, specific goods, and contract of sale was made immediately. Why? Because invoice has been raised. What is the meaning of invoice? A bill has been raised in the name of Mr. A. Mr. A is a buyer in this example. Therefore, now Mr. A becomes the owner of the goods. So what has happened in this respective example? Ownership has been transferred immediately to Mr. A. Why? Because the bill has been made in favor of Mr. A. Therefore, he becomes the owner immediately. But the transfer of possession is still pending. The washing machine is still lying in B's shop. He has to pick it up or get it picked it up and deliver it. Now it says B is now bound to deliver the goods because he has taken the payment. Here, if seller breaches the contract, he fails to deliver the washing machine, then the buyer, Mr. A, can sue him for the goods as well as for the damages. So if the seller, write it down, if the seller breaches the contract of sale, the buyer can sue him for the goods as well as the damages. Now you will ask me, ma'am, what kind of damages? It could be possible that Mr. A was purchasing that washing machine for his own house. Then he will only file a case for claiming the goods. But if Mr. A, the buyer, was a dealer who has to further sell it to Mr. C, so now he lost a contract because, the prices just got variable and he suffered a loss of profit because he had to sell it further to someone. Now the seller has only breached the contract. Therefore, whatever Mr. A wanted to sell further, that has not happened. Therefore, he has suffered a loss of profit. So he can also claim the goods, that is the washing machine. Also, he will file a suit for the damages. Remember damages, when I told you the chapter of damages and the breach of contract, I explained you that the person should have actually suffered a loss. So if A was purchasing the washing machine for his own household, he was not to suffer any losses, then he will only fight a suit for the goods. But if he was a dealer who further had to sell the goods to Mr. C, then you have to see the situation. What is the case actually talking about? So here, if he has suffered the loss of price because now Mr. C has purchased it from someone else, so whatever profits he was going to earn, he has failed to, earn those profits. Therefore, he has to prove this point that now I suffer the loss. Now he has the right to recover the loss also. So Mr. A will file two cases on Mr. B, who was the shopkeeper showroom in charge of washing machine. First of all, for the goods, recovery of the goods, that is washing machine, because invoice has already been paid, he has paid the price, and if the seller has breached the contract, he will recover the goods also, and he will recover the loss also. Who is he? The buyer. So where a seller breaches the contract of sale, the suit will be filed by the buyer, number one, for the goods and for the recovery of the loss. But if it was an agreement to sell, if B has only told you that I will be selling it to you and not sold you. Let's take another example where B has agreed to supply 100 bales of cotton to A on future date. Now if B fails to supply the goods, what has happened? Seller has again breached the contract. So B said, I will be supplying you 100 bales of cotton. Again, B is a seller, A is a buyer. But B fails to deliver the goods on the said date. Therefore, B has committed the breach of agreement to sell. Here, the buyer can only claim the damages. Can you go and fight that give me the goods also? No, because goods anyways belong to the seller. He has not completed the contract of sale. Ownership was still with the seller. Refer to that bold words, SELLER, under agreement to sell we are talking about. So under agreement to sell, you have to see who is the owner. Seller is the owner. So if the seller is breaching the contract, then he himself is the owner of the goods. He will remain the owner of the goods. So what will buyer do? He will still claim the damages. He will file a case that I want my damages, I suffered because of you. I made a contract. I relied on you for the supply of cotton. And now I'm losing my clients because of that. I'm suffering so much damages. So here the owner was still the seller, even if he breaches the contract. Though he is not bound to deliver the goods, but he can still be filed a case for the damages. So write down, if the seller breaches the agreement to sell, the buyer can recover the loss or damages. The buyer can still claim the damages. So what have we learned? We have learned two things where the seller is breaching. Under sale, if the seller is breaching, buyer can recover the goods as well as he can recover the loss or damages that he has suffered. Under agreement to sell, if the seller is breaching the contract, then the buyer can only claim the damages. Now, the second story which your study material has mentioned about the breach of contract from the viewpoint of buyer. Now what happens if the buyer is breaching the contract? So A agrees to sell 100 tons of sugar to B. He sold the sugar. Contract of sale happened. Sugar has been sold. Ownership has been transferred. So who is the owner? Buyer is the owner. Now if buyer refuses to take the delivery, A can file a suit against him for the recovery of money. So he says, sale has happened, you have become the buyer, goods have been sold, now you have to pay me the price. You cannot breach the contract. How will buyer breach the contract? Buyer will only refuse, no, I don't want the delivery. So he cannot now, once the contract of sale has been made, what you have to notice over here, number one, contract of sale has been made, ownership has been transferred to the buyer. Point number 3, buyer can be sued for the price if he breaches the contract. Finished. Under agreement to sell, agreement has happened. Ownership has not been transferred. Seller is the owner. Now if buyer refuses to take the goods, what will you do as a seller? Will you force him to take the goods? Goods are yours only. Price has not been paid. So you can only claim the damages. Let's take a very interesting example. You go to Mr. A's shop and you told him that I want a nice table furniture to be made for my study room. So Mr. A, the shopkeeper, made an agreement to sell with you and he made a furniture table for you. Tomorrow, if you breach the contract, this was an agreement to sell. Can he force you to take this and pay the price? Law says no. He cannot file a case against you for the price because ownership still belongs to the seller. What he can do, he can only claim the damages because he has made this specific table for you, and now he can claim the damages from you. Similarly, under agreement to sell, if the seller is breaching the contract, say for example, Mr. C, some another good person came in his shop and he sold it to Mr. C. In that case, you are the owner, you can still sell the goods. Buyer can also claim the damages and not the goods from you or either Mr. A or Mr. C. He cannot claim the goods, he can only claim the damages. So what you have to remember, under sale, you can file a suit for the goods and damages both if you are a buyer. If buyer is breaching, seller will file a suit for the damages and price of the goods both. Under agreement to sell, if seller is breaching, then buyer can file a case only for the damages. Even if the buyer is breaching the contract, then also the suit can be filed only for the damages and not for the price. Why not for the price, children? Because the goods have yet not been sold. Seller himself is the owner of the goods. Therefore, he can only file a case for the damages. So, children, you have to understand each and every point that is clearly mentioned under sale and agreement to sell. Okay, so now we will be doing differences with hire purchase and bailment. Let's take a 2 minutes break over here and then we will continue with the further session. Thank you. dear students. I got a quick chance to flip through your queries meanwhile. Let me just answer few of you that you have asked the common questions. Let me tell you children one thing, many of you keep saying that ma'am if you can just answer the queries in a presentation. So my answer to that question is you can refer to all the presentations that we are having and the recorded lectures. Children generally there are 4,000 to 5,000 queries at a time. So we try to pick up whatever the common ones and which needs to be answered, which are related, which are relevant from your examination point of view. So for example, if you're just asking, ma'am, if you're selling a yellow pencil, what happens if it is an orange pencil? So it is a very irrelevant kind of question which does not need any answer. So if you're asking something which is relevant, which is related, so all those queries, children, get answered during the session or somewhere in between the session. So my humble request to all of you is just pay attention while the queries are being answered and while the session is going on. Then only you can, remember all the your questions will get answered and you will be able to acknowledge the same. Pooja from Ahmedabad, no, it is not necessary to remember the sections. Mausam Kumari from Jhumri, I would like to tell you the case laws. I will explain you once again when we'll be doing the case studies from the examination point of view, the questions that we will do. Again, I will tell you, but otherwise I have told you the 3 tips that you have to follow. All those who have been asking how to present the paper. First of all, you have to form a connection between what examiner has asked you. First, find the topic to which it relates. Remember when we discussed finder of lost goods. So if you remember the section, you can give the section. Otherwise, you can refer that this is with reference to the finder of lost goods. Second, you have to write the provisions which are applicable in case of finder of lost goods. Third, you have to conclude that in this respective question, this is what you have given, and this is my opinion with respect to that. So you have to break it into 3 parts. First, related with the topic, then the body of the answer, which you say describe the provisions of that respective section or the topic, and then you need to conclude it and give it from the opinion. Aniket from Mumbai, we are yet to do the subject matter part, so don't worry about that. Many of you have asked a very common question, ma'am, what is the meaning of movable, immovable property? Why immovable property is not covered? So let me tell you, and also why immovable property is covered where it is in the Indian contract. So transfer of immovable property is part of Transfer of Property Act. Now, it doesn't mean that you start opening Transfer of Property Act. That is not part of your syllabus. Children, you have to understand what is relevant. The relevant thing over here is sale of goods do not deal with the immovable property. That's it. Where is the immovable property? How we have to study? What is the provision of that? That is not part of your exam. Why are you worried about that? Okay. So you have to sound relevant. Shreya from Mumbai, exactly when you're asking about copyrights, trademarks, they are also part of goods. It will be considered as a sale of goods act. Land and building, again, Mukta is asking, so it is an immovable property. All right. So see, common kind of things you children ask. So you have to be careful. What does it mean? Okay, you're asking about the sale and resale. So all these kind of things will be answered again when we talk about the resale of goods also. Kapil from Bhopal is asking if the party has suffered damages. So you're absolutely right. You can claim the damages only if you're able to prove that point. Now you're asking, ma'am, what is breach of contract? What are damages? All of these things which we have done as a part of Indian Contract Act. So my answer to all of you is you can refer that chapter and go through it once again. Otherwise, we'll keep on, we'll start discussing the Indian Contract Act only once. So breach in short means when one party is refusing, buyer is breaching means he's refusing to take the delivery of goods. You can claim the damages and the price. If seller is breaching means he's not delivering you the goods. Whether it was a sale or agreement to sale, then you can only file the case for the damages and not for the price. All right. So breach basically means when you're breaking the contract, the other party has to prove if any damages have been suffered by the loss has been suffered, then only can be recovered. Many of you have also asked about the insolvency of buyer and seller children. What is the meaning of insolvency? When you do not have enough cash to pay off your liabilities. So if you don't have enough cash to pay off your liabilities, then you're declared insolvent. In that very case, the property or the goods that you have are given to your official assignee. So if you remember 3 to 4 back lectures, I have also explained once again, I have explained over there what is the meaning of insolvency, how the property is given to the official assignee. Okay, so in case of a company, when winding up is happening, it is official liquidator. If it is an individual who gets insolvent, then their property and goods are given to the official assignee, is appointed by the court, and he will be handling his goods. So again, you have to go back to the same breach that we have just noted down. If seller is breaching, then buyer can file a suit against the official assignee. He will be recovering the loss and the goods from the official assignee of the seller. So there, just the word of seller will get replaced with the official assignee. And here, this side, on agreement to sell, if the seller is breaching, then again the buyer can recover the damages from the official assignee. When you talk about the buyer breaching the contract and the seller needs to recover the price, similarly, the seller will be recovering the price from the official assignee of the buyer. So I intentionally did not want to include this point. Some of you have asked about insolvency. That's why I'm telling children, first try to learn what is the meaning of breach of contract. First learn what happens when the seller is breaching, what the buyer will do. Then move and jump to the insolvency. You ask for too many information, you load it over here, you get confused. So let us go step by step. You do this, complete this, and once again, we'll talk about the insolvency if you have not understood it. Okay. First of all, remember who is breaching the contract. What we have to see is who has the ownership. So now you have understood, under sale, buyer is having the ownership. He will bear the loss. He will bear the liability. If anything happens, buyer will be bearing. If seller is breaching, he will file a suit for the goods. What happens under agreement to sell? Seller is the owner. He will only bear the loss. He will only face everything. Only the just in personam is available. There is no just in rem in case of the agreement to sell. If anything happens, he can only claim the damages, not neither the goods. Buyer can also not claim the goods. Neither the seller can claim the price under agreement to sell. So try to remember it so far. Okay, now let's move to the sale versus hire purchase. And once again, I will go back to the queries. Let us finish the chapter. Otherwise, the chapter will be left. So time of hire purchase of agreement. What is the meaning of hire purchase of agreement? First of all, let's understand that. So let's take an example. Hire purchase is kind of similar to making the purchase on the basis of installments. So for example, A has purchased that washing machine from Mr. B for rupees 50,000. A purchased machinery from B on 1st of April. They made a transaction and he purchased a machinery of 50,000 from Mr. B. Now the machinery is still lying in Mr. B's godown, and how the payment needs to be made, Mr. A said, I will give you the down payment, that is the advance payment, 10,000 booking amount I'm paying you, and balance 40,000 I will pay you on installments. And they agreed to pay the 40,000 installments in 10,000 each on 1st May, 1st June, 1st July, 1st August. Now this kind of transaction where you're making the payments on the first day of next month and you have made some booking payment, this is known as hire purchase agreements. Sale has not happened, installments payment is happening. So law says, what will happen? When will the buyer become the owner? Under sale, ma'am, we have learned time of passing the property. Immediately the property is passed, the ownership is passed, and the buyer becomes the owner. Under hire purchase, the buyer will become the owner only on the payment of last installment. So I told you 1st May, 1st June, 1st July, 1st August. 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, 10,000. So 40,000. So here on 1st August, when he pays the last installment, then the buyer becomes the owner. So buyer will get the possession only on 1st of August. He will only, although he got the possession, he bought the washing machine on his home, where he paid the 10,000 on 1st April and bought the washing machine on his own. But he purchased it on the basis of installments. But law says when the buyer becomes the owner. Why it is important to understand? Because then only we can define what happens if anyone is breaching or terminating the contract, what will be the consequences. So here the buyer will become the owner only on the payment of last installment. So what is that date? That date is 1st of August. All these installments are paid. So it is kind of the payments which are being made is like higher charges, as if you have taken something on rent. So all these payment of installments you can write down includes the principal plus the interest payments. So whatever under hire purchase agreement, I'm explaining the meaning of hire purchase agreement. Number one, the payment is not made completely. You pay it in installments. Whatever the amount you're paying, say in a set example of 50,000 washing machine, you have paid 10,000 as a booking amount, 40,000 you're giving it in a breakup of 10,000 each. So this 10,000 each amount includes the principal plus the interest. So every installment includes the principal and interest amount also. And fourth point is when the buyer becomes the owner on 1st of August in our example, that is the last date of the payment of installment. Okay, so now whenever the goods are given, you have to notice this thing that now this buyer, who was the buyer, A purchased the washing machinery from B. On the last installment, A has said to purchase the goods. Earlier, whatever the usage A is doing by paying the higher charges, he is considered to be using the goods on rental basis, as if he is paying the rent of the goods. He will not become the owner before the last date. So this is what we have to understand. Now, ma'am, why are you laying so much stress between the 1st April and 1st of August date? Any time during these dates between 1st April, I told you, listen again. 1st April, A purchased machinery for 50,000, installments to be paid 1st May, 1st June, 1st July, 1st August. So you have understood 1st of August, he will become the owner. So any time period between 1st April till 1st August, A has the right to return the goods. He's just paying the higher charges. So if he wants, he can still opt to return the goods. He is only using the goods like a bailey till the last payment. Bailey means taking reasonable care of the goods, as if he have just taken somebody else's goods. Whose ownership it is? It is the seller's ownership only. Under agreement to sell, it was different case. Seller was the owner, but there was an agreement to sell. Here, we are doing it on a higher purchase. There is some condition which has been imposed of, that is the condition of payment of installments. Understood? So this is the transaction of hire purchase agreement where the buyer becomes the owner only after the last installment. Now I know what query question is coming, ma'am. If he return the goods after 1st August, can he return it? You tell me. No, he cannot, because now he becomes the buyer of the goods. Now he becomes the owner of the goods. Therefore, after 1st August, he cannot return. So between 1st April till 1st August, the date that we decided, hire purchaser has the option to return the goods. But once he has paid the last installment, write it down somewhere. Once he has paid the last installment, buyer becomes the owner of the goods. Then he has no right to return the goods. Okay, so quickly let us do the differences. It says time of passing the property in sale, the property is immediately passed from one person to another. Payment of last installment, then he becomes the owner. Position of the buyer, here seller in case of sale, the buyer is like the owner. Here the buyer is like the hirer, means he has to take reasonable care of the washing machine as a bailey till the final payment is made. Why he has to take a reasonable care? Because he is not yet the owner. Once you become the owner, you can even break the washing machine, it is yours. Here you cannot do that. You are still not the owner. You are just treating it as a hire purchaser. Termination of the contract. Sale, it says buyer cannot terminate the contract. He is bound to pay the price. Remember, we just did over here. Third point, remedies for breach. If the buyer breaches the contract, you will drag him to the court and you will say he has purchased the washing machine. I will file a suit against you to pay the price. Under hire purchase, hirer may terminate the contract. I just explained you any time between 1st April to 1st August, hirer has the right. He can say it is not functioning properly. Please take it back. Whatever situations happen, how he recover the damages at that time, that is a separate story. Okay. And say, for example, if any one of them became insolvent, if the buyer becomes insolvent during payment of money, this is what a study has written. So seller takes the risk of any loss resulting from the insolvency of the buyer. So the fourth point you can write down, insolvency of the buyer. So if the buyer becomes insolvent, who will have to bear the loss? Seller has the risk of loss, because if buyer has become insolvent, then he cannot pay the price. But I told you he still has the right to recover a rateable dividend from the official assignee of the buyer. So write down please, in case the buyer becomes insolvent, under the heading of sale, in case the buyer becomes insolvent, seller can sue the buyer for the price, but he can't take the goods back because goods have been sold. Buyer has become the owner. He can only file a case for the recovery of price. But what he can recover is only a rateable amount from the official assignee. So now buyer has become insolvent. All his goods are with the official assignee. So whatever official assignee, now what will happen in case of insolvency? Please understand. Say for example, basically it's called in Hindi, Diwaliya nikal jana. Somebody who is not having money to pay off, dispose of, all the assets needs to be disposed of to pay the liabilities. You all have heard this term in accounts. So what happens when a person is declared insolvent? Official assignee is appointed. He dispose of, sell all the assets of that person in order to pay the liabilities. Okay. So now when the official assignee will be appointed for this Mr. B, the buyer, he will sell off his assets and pay off the liabilities. Say for example, he has paid all the creditors 20%. So now this seller who is also standing as a creditor whose price needs to be paid, he will only get that rateable amount. This is what is the meaning of rateable amount, rateable dividend that he can recover from the official assignee. So just remember, in case of buyer's insolvency occur, the seller cannot take the goods back because goods have already been sold. He can only recover a rateable amount from the official assignee of the buyer. Under hire purchase, the owner takes no such risk because if he fails to pay the installment, he will take the goods back. Now, if the buyer has become insolvent, the seller will come and he will say, give my machine back. I don't know whether I will get my money or not. You better give my goods only back because I am still the owner. So the whole story revolves around the ownership. Okay, the whole story revolves around the ownership. Please read examples if you can read as many as you can in order to understand who is the owner. So just play a game in your mind. Sale, seller and buyer. Buyer is the owner. He will bear the risk. He will have to suffer everything. Seller will not be suffering, but seller cannot take the goods back because now the goods belong to the buyer. Hire purchase or agreement to sell. Seller is still the owner. He has full right on the goods. He can also file a case for the recovery, but he cannot file a case for the recovery of price of goods. Why? Because the goods are his own. He can take the goods back. So under hire purchase, if buyer has become insolvent, what is the meaning of buyer becoming insolvent? Means he won't be able to make the payment. So now if my termination, I can terminate the goods and I can terminate the contract and I can take my goods back. Because now I am scared because buyer has become insolvent anytime between 1st April to 1st August. If buyer becomes insolvent after 1st August, it's okay. He has made my last payment of installment, no problem. So what you have to see is a question of fact, whether any problem is happening or not happening. So I have, after the end of this presentation, we have 2-3 cases also where you'll understand in a broader way what happens when such kind of situations occur. What you have to remember so far is who is the owner and how the contract can be terminated. If buyer is the owner, you cannot take the goods back. If seller is the owner, then you can still take the goods back. Okay, so it was here. We have written this also, burden of risk. So here the risk is with the seller because he cannot take the goods back. He can only recover the rateable amount. Here the owner takes no risk and has the right to take the goods back. Transfer of title. Here the buyer can pass a good title to a bona fide purchaser. Now what is the meaning of transfer of title? Can you transfer the goods further? What is the meaning of title? Ownership. Write it down. Title means ownership. A sold the goods to B under contract of sale. Who becomes the owner? B becomes the owner. Can B sell the goods further to C? Yes, ma'am, because B is the owner, he can sell the goods further to C. Hirer cannot pass any title even to a bona fide purchaser. A sell the goods to B on hire purchase. A sell the goods to B on hire purchase. When does B become the owner? On the payment of last installment. Can Mr. B sell the goods to Mr. C before the last installment payment? Answer is no. Because remember that example, 1st August. So anytime between 1st April to 1st August, B cannot sell the goods further. Only after 1st August when he becomes the owner, then he can sell the goods, break the machine, whatever he wants to do, he can do it. Till the time he is not the owner, he cannot pass any title. What is the meaning of passing any title? Means he cannot pass the goods further, he cannot pass the ownership. Here, buyer can resell the goods. Yes, ma'am, buyer is the owner, so he can resell the goods. Hirer cannot resell the goods. He is not the owner. Till the time he has not paid the last installment, he cannot sell the goods further. Now, a very interesting example of sale versus bailment. This is again, once we have already given a reference to it, let us quickly go through what is the meaning of bailment, where the person is only transferring the possession of goods. So please remember that car example where your dad has borrowed your neighbor's car. He is the bailee, your neighbor is the bailer. So here the relationship of bailer and bailee occurs. Many of you have asked what is the meaning of bailment. So now pay attention. See, I told you, your queries get answered if you're paying attention. Everything will be answered here only. All you need to give is your concentration, full concentration. Sale versus bailment. Transfer of property. Yes, ma'am, immediately happens. You have told us since last 1 hour, I'm telling you that the property gets immediately transferred from seller to buyer. Buyer becomes the owner. Under bailment, say for example, you said, ma'am, we need your study material for studying. Can you lend it us for 1 day? I said, okay, child, please take it and give it back to me after 5 days. Don't you think you are bound to give it back to me after 5 days? Law says this is purely the case of bailment. Here I become a bailer and you become bailee. You have to take reasonable care of my book that you have borrowed for studying. And after 5 days, you need to return back it to me. This is the example of bailment. I hope you have written it down. So under bailment, you are just transferring the possession of the goods. You are not giving the ownership of the goods. What is the duty of bailee? You all know that. To take a reasonable care. Don't tear a page from my book. Don't make aeroplanes if you're not understanding. Let's tear ma'am's book. No, you are bailee. You're bound to take care of my book. So when do you need to return the goods? Either you have borrowed the goods for a specific purpose after that purpose, or you have borrowed the goods for a certain period of time. Then on lapse of the time, you need to return the goods. If you have borrowed it for examination point, you have studied it, exams over, give it back. You borrowed it for 5 days. After 5 days, you come and give it back. So under sale, do you need to give the goods back? No, you don't need to return the goods. They are your goods. Say, for example, you come to me and you purchase this book. I said, okay, just give me 100 rupees and purchase it. Money consideration has been paid. Okay, let me answer that. Many of you have written in queries. Ma'am, if you're selling this color box for 50 rupees and we paid you 10 rupees in cash and 30 rupees in kind, is it contract of sale? Yes, it is contract of sale. Cash should be there. Monetary consideration should be there. Another thing which just came in my mind, you have asked about credit sale. But whether it is a cash sale or credit sale, it is a valid contract of sale. Yes, credit sale is also part of Sale of Goods Act. When I told you invoice is raised, means a credit sale has been made. Okay, where hire purchase payments are happening, that is also kind of credit sale where installments are being paid. What you have to see is whether you have become the owner or not. Risk follows ownership. Whether it was a credit sale, udhar pe, okay? But have I made the invoice in your name? You have agreed to make the payment later on, still sale has happened. Where I'm telling you the goods are yet to come, it is a future goods and then you make me the payment, it is agreement to sell. But if I've sold the goods whether on cash or on credit, it is a sale of goods. Okay, so many 15, 16 students I read were asking credit on sale. So now I hope your answer has been given. Okay, now transfer of property, the goods get transferred immediately from seller to buyer. Under bailment, you are not transferring the ownership, you are just giving the possession of goods from the bailer to bailee. Remember that book example. Return of goods, under sale, you do not need to return the goods. Here, the bailee must return the goods once the purpose has been fulfilled. Remember the book example, 5 days or after the studies. Here, the consideration is the price. I just explained you have to pay me money when you're buying the goods under sale. Do you need to pay me anything if I'm just giving you the book for studying under bailment? It says consideration may be gratuitous, may be non-gratuitous. You may say, ma'am, we're giving you 100 rupees per day for the rental, the book that we are taking from you. Okay, fine, you can pay. It can be gratuitous, free of cost also. It can be for some payments. So for example, your dad borrowed that car from your neighbors and he said, okay, I'll pay you 500 rupees because the petrol that I have used during the day. So I'm making you the payment. So it can be paid, it cannot be paid. It is absolutely fine. So I hope bailment is absolutely clear. Now we have to complete a very important topic. Generally, examiner gives you a question from this. What is the meaning of contract of work of labor? So children keep on revising insolvency and breach of agreement and sale only, and the question comes related to contract for work and labor. So not tough, it is also very easy, but then all the eyes and ears on the screen with me over here. What is the meaning of contract of work and labor? For example, you want to get a portrait made for yourself. You have hired a person, you have hired a painter, you have asked him that please come to my house, get a canvas, get a palette in which you will be putting up, these paints and everything, color palette, and all your paints you have to get, and you have to paint me a portrait. Now, when you make the payment, don't you think you're paying the painter for the skill, for the talent, for the labor that he has shown to you? Law says such kind of contract where the goods are not sold, only a rendering of some work of labor is being done. In such a case, it is known as contract of work and labor. What do we call it? If we call it sale and contract for work and labor. Goods are not being given. He's not selling you that canvas. He's not selling you the paints over here. He's making a portrait for you. He has bought all material from his house just to render you a service. He's using that material for rendering you a service. But if you go and purchase the paints from the market, that is sale of goods because you're purchasing the goods for making a painting. So this is what you have to understand. For example, A asked B to construct a house for him. So when A asked B that please come and start the construction work, A also said, you will be getting all the raw materials for building this house. So here, A has requested B to bring the raw materials and his labor also. So B is getting two things. He is getting his raw material also and he is going to give his labor also. So here the contract involves both the things, goods as well as the contract for the labor services that he is giving. Okay, so where the goods are actually not being sold, but some service has been rendered which involves the work of labor, then such a contract is known as contract of work and labor. So please remember, under the contract of sale, the only thing which difference you have to notice is sale of goods is happening. Here you are happening the rendering of services also. Very interesting example which is also given in a study material. A gold is supplied to goldsmith for preparation of an ornament. Or when an artist is asked to paint a picture. So I've already explained you when you ask any artist to paint a picture for you. So for example, you don't pay the money to him. So what will an artist go and say? Will he file a case against you by saying that a contract of sale of goods has been breached? Law says no, he will file a case against you that a contract of work and labor has not been fulfilled. So where an artist or some painter has been hired or some services has been taken, so that is completely a contract of work and labor. Where gold is supplied. Now you have your old gold is lying at home and you went to goldsmith and you said that please make a new beautiful necklace for me. Now it is your good only. Are you selling it? Somebody is just putting their expertise and services, the kind of cut he is going to give to the gold. It is only his knowledge. The goldsmith has the artistic knowledge of how beautifully he can make it. So here law says a contract of work and labor has been entered. It is not a sale of goods. A contract of labor and contract of work and labor is conducted when somebody is rendering the services, particularly using his specialization and skill. Now, why I am laying so much stress and saying it is very important? Because many case law judgments have come with respect to this question. Many a time people have a fight and they go to the court and they say that whether it was right or not. So I just want to share one very interesting example with you. What happened once, a person went to a dentist. So also a dentist is having a specialization skill. Only he can, extract your tooth out and put a tooth. You remember when I told you performance of contract? If your father is a dentist and you are a chartered accountant, if your father is not available, he's out of town, can you perform his tasks? No. So if you are a chartered accountant, you can only be perfection in income tax and audits. A dentist is only specialized for his task. So what happened in this interesting case law was dentist put a false tooth in patient's mouth. So he did a cheating with the patient and he repaired his tooth and inserted a false tooth. Now here law has to decide whether the patient who is making the payment, so he went to court, he said, see, he has taken a payment from me and he did wrong thing with me. So law had to decide whether the payment that patient made was for the contract of sale of goods or it was of rendering services. So many debates happened and many, justification litigations cases were read, and it was concluded that this is purely a case of sale of goods. Because here some particular tooth was inserted in person's mouth and the charges has been taken for inserting of the tooth. Although the services were rendered for insertion of the task, but you have to prove in court, when you ask me, ma'am, what is the meaning of judicial interpretations? What is the meaning of legal proceedings? What is the meaning of litigations? This is the meaning. That on the basis of various cases, we have to decide what was the judgment taken with respect to a particular case. But where this case law happened, where the gold was given to the goldsmith, it was held whether I'm paying for my goods or whether I'm paying for the services. So in such cases, it was held by court that you are not, because gold belongs to you only, you are the only owner. So here you are just simply paying for the services. Therefore, it is a contract of work and labor. Another example can be you asked, a person to make curtains for your house. And the contract was made that you have to come and, you have to fix the curtains also at my house. So in such a case, when they had a fight, they said that whether it is a contract of sale or it is a contract of work and labor. You answer me. What kind of contract is it? It is a contract of sale. You have actually purchased the curtains from someone. It is only additional services that you have requested him to come and put the curtains in your house. But such a kind of where movable goods are involved, where not just services, goods are also involved, that will be considered as the contract of sale. Okay. So remember this portrait example, dentist example, and all these goldsmith example in order to understand the contract for work and labor. This is something which we have already done, whether you pay the immediately price, the future delivery, that is how contract of sale is made. Now let's move to the subject matter of contract of sale. So child, what is the subject matter means? What is the basis for making any contract of sale? This is also very, very, very important topic of today's session. Can I say that I made a contract of sale of immovable property? You already told me, yes ma'am, we have understood. Now we also know that immovable property is covered under Transfer of Property Act. So what am I selling to you? Can we make a contract of sale of goods without goods? No. We are talking about A transfers or agrees to transfer goods to B. A transfers sugar to B. Some movable goods. We have already defined what are the goods. So here we are talking about section 6 of Sale of Goods Act 1930 specifically talks about the subject matter of contract of sale. It says what are you going to sell? Subject matter means what are you selling? We are selling the goods. So law says which goods? The goods which form the subject may either be existing goods, owned goods, or the goods possessed by the seller. So they can be existing goods. Yes, ma'am, you told us existing goods can be specific goods. Dairy milk example. Asset in goods, goods which are weighed and measured after taking out from the lots. Uncertain goods, goods which are lying in bulk in our godown. So all these are goods. We also discussed how they are delivered. Actual delivery when somebody is coming to your house and delivering it. Symbolic delivery when somebody is giving you the keys of the car or keys of the warehouse. Constructive delivery where I have called the warehouse man and he's holding, the car has been booked in your name and he's holding the car for you. Constructive delivery. So all these delivery of the goods happen only if the goods are either existing goods, specific, ascertained or uncertain goods. Then there can be future goods. I told you in case of future goods, it is always agreement to sell. Let me read from the study material also because then you tend to get confused with the words. I'm reading point 1. The goods which form the subject matter of a contract may either be existing, owned, possessed by the seller or future goods. So what does the meaning of existing owns means? The seller must be the owner of the goods. Can you go and sell your neighbor's car? You can only sell your car, right? This is my crayon box. I can only sell my crayon box. You can sell this crayon box only when you purchase it from me and you become the owner. Can I sell this water bottle? Yes, I'm the owner of this water bottle. I can sell. Can you sell my water bottle? No, you're not the owner. How can you sell it? So existing goods, specific goods, and he says you must be the owner of the goods. Then only your sale of goods become applicable. First, there should be goods and you should be the owner of goods. Point number 3, I'm reading now. Where the contract of sales seller purports to affect the present sale of future goods, the contract is known as agreement to sell the goods. It says where I am contracting to sell the goods at future date, that means future goods, it is known as agreement to sell. Please mark an asterisk over here and write it down. Agreement to sell is always and always about the future goods. Whenever you are selling future goods, I told you the example, A has still to manufacture the shoes, then only the shoes will be made, B will come and wear them, buy them. This is purely an agreement to sell. Okay, so A tells B that I will be selling you 100 tons of sugar after 1 month. It is purely a case of agreement to sell. Now I am reading point number 2. There may be a contract for the sale, the acquisition of which the seller depends upon a contingency which may happen or non-happen. So now you tell me what type of goods are these? Yes, these are contingent goods. Where the sale of contract of certain cloth to be manufactured by certain mill is a valid contract, such contracts are also called contingent contracts. So it says here in this example, it says I have made a contract of sale that I will be selling certain cloth, but it is yet to be manufactured by the certain mill. So here the dependency of my further sale contract is on the manufacturing done by a certain mill. So law says it's purely a valid contract. It is also known as contingent contract. Any contract of sale for the contingent goods is known as contingent contract of sale. Where I told you a ship, I told you in the beginning of the session, we'll again be talking about the ship. Let me take you to the ship once again. You all must be feeling a little bored. Let's sail in a ship. Let me take you to a Bombay port at Bombay. So P contracts to sell 50 pieces of a particular article provided the ship bringing them reaches the port safely. So law says here the agreement is dependent upon the contingency, whether the ship reaches the port safely. If we have reached safely the Mumbai port, then P can further sell it to the customer. But if the ship sank in between, then it has become impossible to fulfill this contract. So law says the subject matter, the basis of forming the contract of sale can be goods which are existing, the chocolates that we have eaten, specific goods, ascertained, unascertained, medicines which were lying in a box, everything, future goods, the shoes which are yet to be manufactured, or contingent goods which are still in the ship and they need to be landed. Or I'm saying that I will sell you the sugar only if I'm able to purchase it from Mr. C on the future conduct of a living person. All these kind of things make the contract is valid. Now, what we have to understand is what happens if the subject matter is the goods. So if the goods get destroyed, perishing means they get destroyed or something happens to them before making the contract or after we have made the agreement to sell but before selling them. So what will be the consequences? So we have understood, ma'am, what is the subject matter of a contract of sale? The subject matter is goods. Goods can either be existing goods. If examiner asks you section 6, what is the subject matter? You can write down existing goods, specific goods. Existing goods are further divided into this. Future goods, contingent, give an example. You get full marks. But if the examiner asks you, what happens if the goods perishing or destroying before or after the contract of sale? This is what I'm going to answer you now. That is section 7 and section 8 of your study material. Let us understand the first example where the goods get destroyed before making the contract of sale. So now I'm going to talk about two cases. I'm talking about case 1. So A tells B that I will give you 10,000 for the sugar that I am purchasing from Mr. B. So here A is a buyer who says that I have come to Mr. B's shop to purchase the sugar and he says I will give you 10,000 for the sugar that I am purchasing. So who is the buyer here? A becomes the buyer because he is purchasing the sugar. From whom he is purchasing? He is purchasing it from Mr. B, the seller. Let's assume that the sugar bag which A has purchased are kept in B's godown. Where is the sugar bag? So now A says, I will purchase. A and B are having a cup of coffee at the reception area, and both of them are contracting that A says, I will buy the sugar. B says, okay, at what price? 10,000. What is the price? That is coming up in the next slides also. So he says, I'll buy the sugar from you. But the goods are still lying in the godown of B. That is the shopkeeper, that is the seller. And suddenly a fire occurred in the godown. Same time when the both were having a cup of coffee and they were making a contract, a fire occurred. Now here, A and B both are not aware of the goods getting destroyed by fire. So they are making a contract, but the goods are already destroyed. So your study says there any contract for specific goods. So specific goods, we just told you about the sugar that we are making and the price of 10,000 has been agreed. If the goods, without the knowledge of the seller at the time the contract is being made, gets perished or becomes so damaged that they cannot answer the description. Now fire has occurred and all the sugar which was lying in the godown had got destroyed. Don't you think it has become a case of impossibility of performance of contract? What happens when the contract becomes impossible? Now you cannot perform the contract. Therefore, the contract becomes void. So under case 1, section 7, you can write down with the contracts, before making the contract, point number 1, very important, without the knowledge of the seller. Point number 2, the goods get destroyed or damaged. Point number 3, it has become impossible to perform the contract. The contract becomes void. There is no existence of this contract now, because the goods which were the subject matter, they only have got destroyed before entering into the contract. I told you they're sipping a cup of coffee and making the contract, and they are not aware that fire has occurred and the goods have destroyed. So in such a scenario, it has become impossible to perform the contract. Therefore, the contract becomes void. So I told you risk follows ownership. Who will bear the loss? Who will bear the loss? Here, the seller will only bear the loss because the goods were destroyed before the contract of sale has been made. Therefore, seller will only bear the loss. And the Mr. B, in whose godown the goods were lying, he will only bear the risk of loss. Okay, so here the seller will only bear the risk because his goods have got destroyed and the contract anyways have become void. So A agrees to sell 50 bags of wheat which are in the A's godown. Here they have taken different example. Here A is the seller. Waterlogging, all the goods destroyed. Therefore, neither parties were aware, agreement becomes void. Children, each and every word of this statement is important. Always make sure that you write it down in points. Number 1 point, without the knowledge. Number 2, goods destroyed. Number 3, before making the contract. Number 4, contract becomes void. Second point, now when the goods are destroyed after you have made a valid contract of sale, although the goods are still lying in someone's possession, but the goods get destroyed. What happens? Now, let's assume that particular contract of sale was made. So in our example where A was buying the goods and the goods were lying in B's godown, the sugar that he wanted to purchase, both of them has made the contract. Therefore, the contract of sale was made. Therefore, the ownership has been transferred. Ownership passes as soon as the valid contract of sale is made. Okay, so where it is saying agreement to sell means we are assuming that the sale possession, the goods is still lying in godown, but possession of goods is still pending. The performance of contract has happened. You have already passed the ownership of the goods. Law says in such a case, the goods were existing when the contract was made. Okay, so no fire has occurred in second example. The goods are existing. Now, once the contract has been completed, so Mr. A becomes the buyer, becomes the owner. If now, after the sale has been, agreement to sell has happened, all the documentation, everything has happened. Very important point to notice over here, the goods are just lying in B's godown. Only the possession is still with the seller, but A, the buyer, has become now the owner. Sale of goods says risk follows ownership. So here we have to see who has become the owner. Now, if A has become the owner, it is his duty to immediately take the goods from the godown to his house. But if he fails to take the goods and sale of contract has been taken place, now if the goods get destroyed, buyer will have to bear the loss. Contract still remains valid. It will not become void. Okay, so what are the two important points we have to understand where the contract becomes void? If just before making the contract we were having a coffee and the goods got destroyed without our knowledge, contract will become void. But where the agreement for specific goods and subsequently goods without any fault of buyer or seller become damaged, then before the risk passes to the buyer, agreement is therefore avoided. It says if it is somewhere in between sale and agreement to sell, then the agreement can still be avoided, where we have still not passed the ownership, where we were still thinking we were about to sign the agreement. But once the contract of sale has been made, once you have agreed to purchase the goods, once you have signed a valid contract of sale, in that very case, the sale will be considered valid and the buyer will have to bear the loss. All right. So this is how you have to remember. If it is completely before the sale and after agreement to sell, then the contract can be avoided. But if the goods have been sold and then it is buyer's responsibility to take the goods, therefore, simply you have to remember if seller is the owner, he will bear the loss. Contract becomes void if without its knowledge the goods get destroyed. If after valid contract of sale the goods get destroyed, buyer's responsibility. But before sale and after agreement to sale is in between. Okay, so basically there are three scenarios: before making the contract, after agreement to sell, after making the valid contract of sale. So after making valid contract of sale, buyer is responsible. Before making the contract, seller is responsible. Contract is void. Anywhere, somewhere between sale and agreement to sale, then the contract is avoided. Contract is simply avoided, but you have to see whether the ownership was passed or it is yet to be passed. Let us understand from the example. It says at the time of agreement, neither party were aware of the destruction that happened. So there was a lot of destruction that has happened. Let us read the example. Then in such a case, agreement becomes void. So here A is agreeing to sell 50 bags of wheat which are stored in A's godown. But suddenly you can see in the picture waterlogging happened and all the goods got destroyed. Now what will happen? It says parties were not aware about such a kind of destruction. Therefore, the agreement completely becomes void. Okay, both the parties, neither party will be held liable because they were not aware and such a kind of waterlogging happened. Therefore, the agreement will become void. So here where the goods without the knowledge of the parties are perished, agreement is void. Here the contract of specific, children, mind it is always using about the specific goods. So now you know the meaning of specific goods, which are not ascertained or unascertained. They are specifically mentioned. So here we are talking about specific goods. Without the party's fault, goods got damaged. Risk was not passed to the buyer. Agreement can be avoided. So this second paragraph, you have to read the second line, last line very carefully. Where if risk was not passed to the buyer, avoid the agreement. But if the contract of sale was made, risk was passed, then the buyer will be liable. Now let us quickly come to the last topic of today's session because I'm really worried we should not leave the syllabus in between. Ascertainment of price. So it says now we have talked about the subject matter of goods. So yes, ma'am, you told us goods are the main essential of the Sale of Goods Act. Now what price you're going to sell them? So ascertainment of price, again it sounds difficult, but it is very, very easy. Section 9 and 10 specifically talks about at what price I'm going to sell you the goods. So I already told you price has to be in money consideration. So first thing we have to keep in mind, no barter exchange is possible. Money has to be there. Now how the price consideration has to be fixed. Point number 1, something which is mentioned in the contract. Price which is mentioned in the contract will be considered as the price. So A agrees to sell sugar to B for rupees 500. So they have mutually agreed the price. So it says price which has to be fixed may either be determined by the parties in the course of dealing, that is they are meeting with each other and they are fixing the prices, or it will be mutually fixed, or it will be as per the price mentioned in the contract. So there are three things that the study has told you. Price is either fixed by the contract, that is I have mentioned A agrees to sell sugar to B for rupees 500, B have fixed it, or we met over a cup of coffee, or we contracted with each other that this is the price, mutually we agreed, or agreed to be filled in by the valuer. Now, what is the meaning of valuer, ma'am? What is the third party? See, for example, where the price needs to be determined, you have a gold or diamond lying at house. Can anyone just seeing the diamond tell the price? No, you need a third party valuation. You have to go to the diamond shopkeeper. He will see what kind of cut it is, what kind of, studs we have used. And that is how he will determine the price of that real diamond or maybe real gold. So law says where you're going to enter into contract of sale of such goods, there might be the manner which has to be fixed by the third party. So he is known as a valuer. So either it is by mutually the parties are fixing, or it is in the contract it is mentioned, or it is fixed by the valuer, or we are fixing it by course of dealings. Means you keep on doing trading with me. Last month also it was 10 bags of sugar were sold for rupees 1000. So we will be keeping the same course of dealings on the basis of same trade and commerce. We will fix the price. Fourth point is very, very important. When none of the modes has been used, then what will be the price? See, for example, you're a new businessman. You are Mr. A, you're a new businessman. You have never done any sale before. You're doing it for the first time. So you do not have any course of dealings. You don't know what is the price that is, have to be fixed. Law says in such a case, you have to fix the price, which is a reasonable price. Let me take you back to the chapter of performance of contract. Remember, we used the word reasonable time, reasonable place. I told you, you cannot go into somebody's house at 1 a.m. at night because it is not reasonable time. So reasonable time was something to be decided by a court. Here, we are talking about the reasonable price. This is also something which has to be decided by the court. Law says reasonable price is the question of fact. It depends from case to case that what will be the reasonable price. Let's take very interesting example. I know it's lunchtime, you must be very hungry. So say for example, you are running a business and you have just opened a business where you want to sell some chips. So it is a kind of Lay's chips. So we know generally the Lay's packet of chips is for rupees 10. So law says we will see what is the market price prevailing. If the chips are similar to somewhat, to say Lay's or Uncle Chips, then we will be fixing the price related to that. But if you are selling Doritos or something which is superior to Lay's or something like that, then we will be fixing the price according to that. So here law has to determine, here court will determine what will be the reasonable price if you have not fixed the price. So how do we ascertain the price? The four things I told you, either it is mutually agreed, or it is as per the contract, or the parties meet and decide, or there can be a third party valuer, which will be coming in the further slides. If none of them has been decided, then what price you will sell the goods? It will be reasonable price. Who tells you the reasonable price? Law will tell you, court of law will tell you what will be the reasonable price. So let's take example. A agrees to sell his car to B for 50,000. Here the price is fixed, so there is no problem. Everything will happen at 50,000. A agrees to sell his Maruti for 50,000 if a new model does not come within a week, or for 20,000 if the new model comes within 1 week. Law says it is a void contract because there is uncertainty of price. You are wagering from your prices. It is a wagering agreement. Happening or non-happening has been made or dependent upon something, and you're just shifting your prices. There is an uncertainty. Law says if there is any such kind of uncertainty in fixing the price, then the contract becomes void. So you understood four things over here, that price can be fixed by these four methods. Fifth thing we have noticed over here, that if there is uncertainty in the price, please write down children, if there is any uncertainty of the price, seller is not giving a certain price, he's either saying 50,000 or 20,000. In such a case, the contract is considered to be void. Contract is considered to be void on the grounds of uncertainty. Remember, 100 tons of oil, I'm not telling you which oil. Similarly, at this price, I'm not telling you what price, then the contract becomes void. Where price is mentioned in the contract, A agrees to sell 100 toys to B. Both of them agree that the price should be fixed by C. So I told you, third party, where the contract, where the manner in fixing the price is mentioned in the contract, means third party will be telling us at what price I will be selling you the goods. Therefore, now the price has to be determined by Mr. C. Therefore, it is absolutely valid contract. but A agrees to sell at a price which is to be determined by B, it says it as it gives right to fix the price to one party without the consensus of others. So mutual agreement is very important. These are very important examples, children. This will help you to understand. So this example, which is written in green, you can write down this example relates to mutual consent of parties. It cannot be determined only by one party. Either it should be as per the manner which is written in the contract, that is, we have decided, okay, third party is telling you. But it cannot be that one party is only deciding, other is not having a say. Both the parties should be having equally say. It should be as per the price which is mentioned in the contract, as per the manner which is written, or in the course of dealings between the parties. So parties, both of them mutually have to agree. It cannot be that only one party is deciding it. Then it is not a valid contract. And the last one, where price is determined as a course of transaction between both the parties. So it says A contracted with B to buy 100 shares in the general course of dealings. Here the price is accepted prevailing. So he says we decided that whatever is the market price on that particular date, that is something which we will consider as a part of price of the contract of sale of goods. And here the last example, it says where no price is fixed, we will be considering reasonable price. Children, remember the Lay's chips example. If it is for ₹10, you will consider ₹10. If we are talking about 100 rupees packet or Doritos 35 rupees bigger packet, then you have to fix the price as per that market price which is prevailing with respect to the related item. Okay. Now, this is your study material example, which says agreement to sell at valuation, which talks about the motorcycle. The last example, which is given in your study material, it says P agrees to sell both the bikes to S at a price to be fixed by Q. Here, the delivery of one bike was given and Q refuses to fix the price. So I told you third party can also fix the price. Here, the third party is Q. Law says if any such cases happen where the third party who was to fix the price and he refuses to fix the price, what happens? Then the party can recover the damages and also the contract can be considered to be avoided. Let us understand. It says P has asked to return the bike already delivered. So here, for delivery of the second bike, you can apply the legal position. All right, since we are running short of time, I suggest we will take this analysis once again. When I begin with the next session of conditions and warranty, I will again start from this respective topic. Let us quickly go through these examples and we can wind up the topic. A contract for the sale of goods with the property has been passed at a total price. So what does it mean? When property will be passing at a total price, this is the case of agreement to sell. Okay. So here an artist has been appointed to paint a portrait for 1,000 and Y uses his own canvas and paints. So here he is using his own products also, but here the particular painting point of purpose the person has been appointed, therefore it is a contract of work and materials. It says if the seller has handed over the keys of a warehouse containing the goods to the buyer, in such a case, it is known as symbolic delivery. Remember, children, where any keys of the warehouse or keys of the car has been given, in such a case, it is known as symbolic delivery. So please go through all these kind of things which has been given in the presentation. We will be talking about the last example of P and Q in our next class also because we are running short of time. And let me just flip through the queries once. All right. I hope you have understood nicely and you have enjoyed today's session. So it's just the queries time. Now let us just go through. If anything is still left undone or unanswered, don't worry. We'll take it up in the next class as well. Please don't forget to revise whatever we have discussed today. Too many things we have discussed today. I'm just trying to look for your queries. So Mukta from Mukta Vyas, yes, if you're, any payment in advance, are you paying what you have to see whether the ownership has been transferred. So I just explained you whether it is a cash sale or credit sale. If the ownership gets transferred then and there, then the buyer becomes the owner. If something in advance has been paid and still final payment needs to be made, then it is an agreement to sell and the ownership gets transferred at the last day. Shubham from Noida is asking loss of profit child. Say, for example, I had to purchase certain set of pencils from you, and then I had to sell it further to Mr. C. But now one of you have breached the contract, you have not delivered it, and I lost my contract with that person. So I'm suffering a loss of profit. Okay, now maybe the price has changed or some variations have happened and I have suffered a loss of profit. So again, you have asked, I hope now breach of contract is absolutely clear. Many of you have asked the similar kind of queries. So please, you can refer to the video once again, listen it with your calm mind and you will be clear with everything. Only thing you have to remember is that is who is having the ownership in case of whether it's a sale or agreement to sale. Aniket from Mumbai, yes, you should learn the meanings and definitions, but if you want to express something in your own words, it's absolutely fine. You can use it in your own words. Puneet Kaur from Gurgaon, just in rem means you have all the rights of that product against whole world. Again, Shruti is asking for just in rem. Just in rem, children, means that you get all the rights for that particular thing, means now you have the right to either dispose that product or throw it in the dustbin or eat that product or scribble it in the wall, whatever you want to do, it is your good. That means just in rem, you have got all the rights against that particular good when you become the owner of this goods. Kapil from Bhopal, yes, you're absolutely right. You have been answering all those things. Thank you. Thank you so much, Neha, Jasmine, Pooja. Sisra from Kerala, thank you so much. I am glad you enjoyed the session. Yes, sure, Pooja from Ahmedabad. We will definitely be doing it once again, no worries. Sam from Tamil Nadu is asking how to classify the contingent goods. Kapil from Bhopal is again asking happening or non-happening of the event. So children, you just have to see if there is any contract which A and B are agreeing with each other and the dependency of the contract is that contract is dependent upon something else. Always keep that ship example in mind that when the ship will come, then only I will be able to sell the goods. That means the goods which are in the ship are contingent goods for me. Kanishkar from Madhya Pradesh, exactly, you have to see who is the owner. If once you have become the owner, if it is a case of agreement to sell and you're breaching the contract, then the other party can claim the damages. But if it was a sale, then you can be filed a suit for damages as well as for the price. Niharika from New Delhi, money is not a good. Simple, remember that. Biswa Bandhu from Bhadrak, we will be talking about that differences that you have asked once again when we do Unit 3. Kapil from Mobile, when you're asking about, when a car is given for repairs, it can be a contract of work and labor also because then services are being rendered. But where you're doing specifically for bailment, there somebody is asking for the purpose use, specific use. So you have to see, children, what kind of nature of transaction that contract is. Anisha and many others, Neha, everybody's asking what is the meaning of bona fide. Bona fide means somebody is not cheating you. Remember the gunshot? Bona fide purchaser means somebody who is actually you are making the sale. You're not just somebody has stolen it from you. So it says the buyer can pass a good title to bona fide purchaser from him. That means if A sold the goods to B, so B has the goods, he has the right of just in rem against those goods. He can sell it to Mr. C. So Mr. C can be a bona fide purchaser. Somebody who is purchasing it in a good faith. Okay. But hire purchaser cannot even sell it to somebody who is purchasing in good faith. He has no right. Okay. Isha, if the goods get destroyed, Isha Vedi, before the further installment, so you have to see who is the owner. Seller is the owner, so seller will bear the loss. Sakshi, you have to see if the goods are uncertain, contingency is dependent on something, then it will become contingent. Otherwise, it can also be considered as future goods if manufacturing of goods is pending. Yes, Isha Vedi, installment and hire purchase are somewhat same, but it is different. Hire purchase completely talks about when the ownership gets transferred in with respect to comparison with sale. Naveen Kumar from Tamil Nadu, I'm not clear with your query, what you have written. Many of you have asked, do we need to remember all the points of differences between sale and agreement to sell? Yes, you must remember. Bhumika Jain, you can specifically ask which point you want to understand your child from differences between sale and agreement to sell. Rahul from New Delhi, please write once again if I've missed your query. Sure, Vikas from Hyderabad, we'll try to do that as well. Piyush from Bihar, sections are not compulsory. Insolvency, Pooja from Ahmedabad, I've explained you the point of insolvency. Kindly refer to the video once again and listen to that. So again, the queries are related to, cash and credit, Jyoti, Tanu, Dharmik, Amit Kumar. I hope now your points have got clearer when I explained the queries in between also, child. Thank you so much, Saundarya from Mumbai. Sejal, again, you have asked something, differences, points. You're not clear, child, what you're asking. You must ask specifically. No MCQs do not come, Amarnath from Andhra Pradesh. Subjective paper will come in exam. Akshit from New Delhi, I just explained delivery of goods. So you've listened to the lecture once again. You'll find about delivery of goods also. How contract of sale is made, Mausam Kumari, you're still on contract of sale. So again, you also listen to the video. The things will become clearer once again. So thank you so much, students. And once again, we'll begin the session from, where we have ended it. See you soon again. And please stay in touch, means stay connected with your studies, keep revising, and see you soon. Thank you so much.